When we launch the program, we can see a panel with a number of buttons. These represent the states the program can be in, and each has an associated set of tools. First, let's look at the entity editor. In the program, any object that exists within the scene is an entity. In essence, entities are collections of components. A component provides a set of functionality, and when grouped together, can create complex behavior. Two entity types are available by default, and they can be instantiated by clicking the corresponding button in the instantiation panel and pressing F1 at the desired location. If we click on an entity, a green rectangle appears to show that it's selected. This panel over on the left will also populate itself with the details of the selected entity. If we click on the text boxes on the entity panel, we can see help text appears. When we click Add, a list of all possible components that can be added to the entity pops up. Remove and View will show lists representing the components currently attached to the entity. Let's look at the rectangle renderer component on our entity. As we can see, it's just a color. We can change these values in the editor. For example, if I want a green rectangle, I can simply set the G value to 255. Let's look at our other entity. As we can see, this one has a texture renderer component. Let's view it. This component just has a single string representing the name of the texture. If we backspace, we can see the texture disappears because the string is no longer valid. To demonstrate adding and removing components, we're going to turn our rectangle entity into a texture entity. Let's remove the rectangle renderer component. Click on View and we can see it's no longer there. Now let's add a texture renderer component and view it. We need to give a texture name, so let's type in default texture as one word. Sometimes changing values manually in the editor is not ideal. In addition to the entity panel, a tool is associated with each component for simple editing. For example, if I view the spatial component, we can see there are extra details now displayed around the entity. We can click and drag to move the entity. We can click and drag on any of the dots around the border to resize. And we can also click and drag on the outside dot in order to rotate.